According to Matthew chapter 16, here the Pharisees and Sadducees approached him, and to tempt him, they asked him to display to them a sign from heaven. In reply, he said to them, "When evening falls, you are accustomed to say, 'It will be fair weather, for the sky is fire red.' And at morning, 'It will be wintry, rainy weather today, for the sky is fire red but gloomy looking.' You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but the signs of the times you cannot interpret. A wicked and adulterous generation keeps on seeking for a sign, but no sign will be given it except the sign of Jonah." With that, he went away, leaving them behind. Now the disciples crossed to the other side and forgot to take loaves along. Jesus said to them, "Keep your eyes open and watch out for the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees." So they began to reason among themselves, saying, "We did not take any loaves along." Knowing this, Jesus said, "Why are you doing this reasoning among yourselves? Because you have no loaves, you with little faith? Do you not yet see the point? Or do you not remember the 5 loaves in the case of the 5,000? And how many baskets you took up? Or the 7 loaves in the case of the 4,000, and how many provision baskets you took up? How is it you do not discern that I did not talk to you about loaves? But watch out for the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees." Then they grasped that he said to watch out, not for the leaven of the loaves, but for the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Now, when he had come into the parts of Caesarea Philippi, Jesus went asking his disciples, "Who are men saying the Son of Man is?" They said, "Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "You though, who do you say I am?" In answer, Simon Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." In response, Jesus said to him, "Happy you are, Simon, son of Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal it to you, but my Father who is in the heavens did. Also I say to you, you are Peter, and on this rock mass I will build my congregation, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of the heavens, and whatever you may bind on earth will be the thing bound in the heavens, and whatever you may loose on earth will be the thing loosed in the heavens." Then he sternly charged the disciples not to say to anybody that he was the Christ. From that time forward, Jesus Christ commenced showing his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the older men and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised up. At this, Peter took him aside and commenced rebuking him, saying, "Be kind to yourself, Lord. You will not have this destiny at all." But turning his back, he said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, because you think not God's thoughts, but those of men." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If anyone wants to come after me, let him disown himself and pick up his torture stake and continually follow me. For whoever wants to save his soul will lose it, but whoever loses his soul for my sake will find it. For what benefit will it be to a man if he gains the whole world, but forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is destined to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he will recompense each one according to his behavior. Truly I say to you that there are some of those standing here that will not taste death at all, until first they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." According to Mark chapter 8. In those days, when there was again a big crowd and they had nothing to eat, he summoned the disciples and said to them, "I feel pity for the crowd, because it is already 3 days that they have remained near me, and they have nothing to eat. and if I should send them off to their homes fasting, they will give out on the road. Indeed, some of them are from far away." But his disciples answered him, "From where will anybody here in an isolated place be able to satisfy these people with loaves?" Still, he went on to ask them, "How many loaves have you?" They said, "7." And he instructed the crowd to recline on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves, gave thanks, broke them, and began to give them to his disciples to serve. And they served them to the crowd. They also had a few little fishes. And having blessed these, he told them also to serve these. Accordingly they ate and were satisfied. And they took up surpluses of fragments, 7 provision baskets full. Yet there were about 4,000 men. Finally he sent them away. And immediately he boarded the boat with his disciples and came into the parts of Dalmanutha. Here the Pharisees came out and started disputing with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven to put him to the test. So he groaned deeply with his spirit and said, "Why does this generation seek a sign? Truly I say, no sign will be given to this generation." With that he left them, got aboard again, and went off to the opposite shore. As it was, they forgot to take loaves along, and except for 1 loaf, they had nothing with them in the boat. And he began to order them expressly and say, "Keep your eyes open, look out for the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod." So they went arguing with one another over the fact that they had no loaves. Noting this, he said to them, "Why do you argue over your having no loaves? Do you not yet perceive and get the meaning? Do you have your hearts dull of understanding? Though having eyes, do you not see? And though having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000 men? How many baskets full of fragments you took up?" They said to him, 12. "When I broke the 7 for the 4,000 men, how many provision baskets full of fragments did you take up?" And they said, 7. With that he said to them, "Do you not yet get the meaning?" Now they put in at Bethsaida. Here people brought him a blind man, and they entreated him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, brought him outside the village, and having spit upon his eyes, he laid his hands upon him and began to ask him, "Do you see anything?" And the man looked up and began saying, "I see men, because I observed what seemed to be trees, but they are walking about." Then he laid his hands again upon the man's eyes, and the man saw clearly, and he was restored, and he was seeing everything distinctly. So he sent him off home, saying, "But do not enter the village." Jesus and his disciples now left for the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he began questioning his disciples, saying to them, "Who are men saying that I am?" They said to him, "John the Baptist, and others Elijah, still others one of the prophets." And he put the question to them, "You though, who do you say I am?" In answer, Peter said to him, "You are the Christ." At that he strictly charged them not to tell anyone about him. Also, he started teaching them that the Son of Man must undergo many sufferings and be rejected by the older men and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed and raised 3 days later. Indeed, with outspokenness he was making that statement, but Peter took him aside and started rebuking him. He turned, looked at his disciples, and rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, because you think not God's thoughts, but those of men." He now called the crowd to him with his disciples and said to them, "If anyone wants to come after me, let him disown himself and pick up his torture stake and follow me continually. For whoever wants to save his soul will lose it, but whoever loses his soul for the sake of me and the good news will save it. Really, of what benefit is it for a man to gain the whole world and to forfeit his soul? What really would a man give in exchange for his soul? For whoever becomes ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will also be ashamed of him when he arrives in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. According to Luke chapter 9, verses 18 through 27. Later, while he was praying alone, the disciples came together to him, and he questioned them, saying, "Who are the crowds saying that I am?" In reply, they said, "John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others that one of the ancient prophets has risen." Then he said to them, "You though, who do you say I am?" Peter said in reply, "The Christ of God." Then in a stern talk to them, he instructed them not to be telling this to anybody, but said, "The Son of Man must undergo many sufferings, and be rejected by the older men, and chief priests, and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised up." Then he went on to say to all, "If anyone wants to come after me, let him disown himself, and pick up his torture stake day after day, and follow me continually. For whoever wants to save his soul will lose it, but whoever loses his soul for my sake is the one that will save it. Really, what does a man benefit himself if he gains the whole world but loses his own self or suffers damage? For whoever becomes ashamed of me and of my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of this one when he arrives in his glory and that of the Father and of the holy angels. But I tell you truthfully, there are some of those standing here that will not taste death at all until first they see the kingdom of God."